If you're someone who is more focused on the future than they are in the now, and you're doing this because manifestation coaches are telling you to envision your future and connect with the energy of the future and bring it back, and it's the only way to get out of the situation you're in, then I want to tell you there's another way to manifest your future, and too much focus on the future may actually be holding back progress in the now. The reason why I say this is because the divine, or your oversoul, or your higher self, whatever you want to call it, those can potentially be separate things, but they often work together. These factors that are far beyond your comprehension as a limited physical being here to learn in this earth school, before you came in, you decided what you want this life to be and what specific things that you want to learn within this life here. And so it's necessary for you on this journey to that dream life that you're after to go through specific lessons and, things that will inevitably set you up for success in the future. But if you focus on the future rather than just going through the step-by-step process in the now, then it can actually prevent you from taking the steps you need in the now to get to that future. So the reason why I say this is because the best course of action that you can take to manifest that future is to respond to the now and say, what is the now currently asking me for? What is it asking me to do? And then go from there and change moment to moment. Because when you start listening to divine flow truly, you will start to see that you might have one response to something 1 minute, and 5 minutes later you'll have a completely different response. And so when we envision the future, often that has to do a lot with our minds and what our minds think the future ought to look like and stuff like that. And then it will get in the way of what we're actually responding to in the moment, because it will set up specific expectations, and then when you don't meet those expectations, then you feel like you're a failure, and you feel guilt and you feel shame. Okay, sorry, I had to pause. There was a very loud emergency vehicle passing, so lots of sirens. But yeah, when you spend too much time in the future, you're also diluting your energy. And so when we dilute our energy, we're diluting our attention and our focus, and therefore our ability to manifest in the moment. Because our ability to manifest is directly related to how we respond to the moment and the actions that we take in the moment, which are sort of back to being controlled, let's say, by the amount of focus that you have on the present moment. So if you're doing a specific task and you're half focused on the future outcome of what that painting is going to look like, let's say, rather than focusing on each individual keystroke as you do it, then chances are the success of that painting isn't going to be as good as if you were fully focused on what you were doing at the time, knowing that as you're painting, there's going to be things that come up in the creation of that painting that you couldn't have possibly predicted or controlled, and just things that basically will, let's say one tree ended up looking a little bit different, and then you say, okay, I wanted to put a duck in this tree because it's more suitable. And now the whole dynamic of the painting changed, and your whole expectation of the future is thrown off just because of a more suitable fit to the creation when you're surrendering into divine flow than you possibly could have imagined otherwise. So try not to focus too much on the future, but rather live each moment in the now as best as you possibly can, and use that to your advantage to manifest as best as you possibly can. So the other more subliminal piece that might not be as obvious is that some of these habits and techniques that we end up with, especially when we follow other people's advice rather than listening to our own guidance, is these subliminal pieces that inevitably happen through certain behaviors that aren't obvious, but they are there. And so one of the things about focusing too much on the future is that when you say that there's something in the future that I'm working towards, what you're effectively saying to some degree or another is that you're not fully okay with where you're at in the moment. Because if you were, then you wouldn't necessarily desire those things in the future in the first place, right? You'd just be content with where you are. So then you also compare the now to the future, and you will, again, subliminally say, this isn't necessarily a fully conscious thing, but you'll subliminally say, like, I don't have that thing that I want now. I am living in a state of lack right now. That's not where we want to be. We want to be fully happy with the now. We want to be fully joyful of the moment. We want to be grateful for what this moment brings and the specific lessons that we're learning in this part of our journey. And we want to also be grateful for what the future has and the mystery of what the future has. And I think too, like, there's this, idea with the mind that we can predict the possible outcomes for our life, and that's a good thing to do. And I have found time and time again that, like, these extraordinary things happen that set you on a completely different course than you were imagining for yourself. And once that shift takes place, then basically everything from the past that was once true no longer becomes true. You're not in the same sort of timeline anymore. It is sort of a timeline jump that takes place, and these things are unpredictable. But, like, there's tons of examples I could give you. You have an inclination one day to go to a certain coffee shop. You don't know why. You go there. Next thing you know, you order a specific croissant that you really liked, and then you decide that you want to learn how to make that croissant. And next thing you know, you're opening a croissant shop rather than becoming a lawyer that you were planned to, right? Another thing is you could go to that coffee shop and you could meet a specific person, right? And so now that person ends up being a business partner or a friend. Or you could go to that specific coffee shop and you could get food poisoning, and it could completely destroy your entire day and week, and maybe it leads to you getting fired from your job. Anyway, you don't know what you're going to find in that coffee shop. Nobody knows what we're going to find in any day of our life. It's part of the fun of this whole experience. And so when you try and predict the future and you try and build towards specific things, then you are basically omitting that nature of reality as truth. You're saying that there aren't divine things that can occur that are going to set you on completely different trajectories, and you're not accounting for a very real thing that happens all the time in our lives. And so, yeah, I mean, it has happened to me many times. I have been on a specific course. Maybe I watch somebody's YouTube channel. Next thing you know, I have a new person in my life that changes your life, right? And so I'm saying all of this because the whole goal of my teachings and what I'm trying to help students, or just in general curious learners, learn is that your own guidance will ultimately be the best source of guidance you could ever possibly connect with. Of course, it's good to receive consulting from other people, and like, I'm a huge believer in energetic connections, and we absolutely need each other for so many amazing things. But when it comes down to your decision making, you have to use your own free will to say, I see potential possibilities for decisions that I could make. I have listened to advice from others in terms of what they think I should do, and I will choose between those different options myself based off what serves my needs the most. And that sounds like a selfish thing, but to some degree it isn't, because you are source. When you take care of yourself, then you have more to give others, right? So your happiness is something that radiates out of you. It's sort of like a sun, right? A sun doesn't necessarily lose anything to give per se. It just is omitting based off its being, right? And so you too have this capacity to be a sun that emits beautiful energy for the world around you, but not if you don't listen to yourself. And imagine if the sun, rather than shine today, says, I'm going to focus more on shining tomorrow than today. It doesn't necessarily make sense when you see it from other perspectives rather than the human perspective that is, very mental oriented. And so all this to say, thank you so much for watching. Please listen to your own advice. Please focus on the moment and navigate your life from there. And if you're interested, then follow for more, because it's fun to sit down and have these conversations with you all. So have a beautiful day. Thank you so much.